Today, we're going to talk about how to spot an emotionally evolved man or woman in this conversation today. So, where this video was birthed was from a post I did on my social media. So, I want to read it to you, and then we're going to dive into what an emotionally evolved man or woman looks like, even though this is probably a little bit more focused on the men, because this was originally based on me. So, let me share with you the post, and it goes like this. When a man thinks he's lost his masculinity, he's usually becoming more of a man. For years, I thought I wasn't very masculine. After my financial crash, my identity collapsing, losing my son, and everything that cracked me wide open, I quietly told myself I was weak. Not in the obvious ways, but in the subtle, private ways that men rarely admit out loud. I even told my beloved before we ever went on a date, I said, I think I'm 51% feminine and 49% masculine. And at the time, I believed that because I didn't look like the old version of a man. I wasn't stoic like my father. I wasn't the guy with endless certainty. I wasn't the planner of everything man. I wasn't emotionally shut down or financially invincible. So in my mind, that meant something was wrong with me. But here's what I missed completely. Everything I rebuilt after the crash, the emotional scaffolding, the empathy, the communication, the self-awareness, wasn't me becoming less masculine. It was me becoming more of a conscious man. And I didn't fully see it until I experienced it on the inside of a healthy relationship. Let me repeat that. I didn't really recognize it until I got into a healthy relationship. Because today, with my beloved, here's what surprised me. I led the direction of our relationship. I'm the one that holds the vision of where we're going. I bring up the emotional conversations that deepen our connection. I create the structure for honesty and clarity. I take the sexual lead in ways that allow her to soften and surrender. I initiate the practical discussions about building a life together, and she thrives in that. She trusts that she relaxes into it. Ironically, these are the exact qualities I never gave myself credit for. These are the qualities I once thought made me less masculine. Now I see they were my masculinity coming alive in a deeper, more grounded form. Not the old masculine model, not forced or bravado, not perfection under pressure, not controlling everything, not stuffing my emotions, but direction, presence, integrity, truth, vision, sexual leadership, and rational responsibility and emotional courage. And yes, I still wobble under stress sometimes. I still get triggered when my life feels uncertain. I still feel the old imprint from my childhood that says, you should be stronger. But here's the thing. Those moments aren't femininity. They're humanity. They're nervous system patterns I'm still rewiring. They don't disqualify my masculinity. They make it honest. Because the real masculine isn't the man who never bends. It's the man who shows up even when he feels fear. The man who leads the conversations that matter. The man who tells the truth with tenderness. The man who chooses integrity over ego. The man who keeps rising after every fall. If you're a man who worries you've lost your masculinity because life humbled you, or because you grew emotionally, or because you led with empathy, or because you don't fit the old model, let me tell you what I've learned. You didn't lose your masculinity. You lost the mask. What came alive afterward, that's the man you were always meant to be. And if you're a man reading this or listening to this, and you can relate, if you ever want to talk, reach out to me. By the way, that took me 3.5 minutes to read. I didn't realize that. So as I'm sharing this with you, this video was birthed when I started to think of some of the qualities or some of the experiences that my now beloved experiences in our relationship. And everything I'm going to share, I'm a man sharing this. She does the exact same thing from the feminine. How to spot an evolved masculine or feminine man or woman. I'm hoping that what I'm sharing with you today gives you some insight. So please make sure you write these down. Go back and rewind it and copy this, because I want this in your reticular activating system. I want this in the back of your mind when you're in the dating process, when you're actively in the dating process. And I get it. If you're single looking for love, it can be very challenging right now. It might feel like you're in a sea of dysfunctionality, and that's sadly because, and I was there 20 years ago. I was a broken man. I'd lost everything. I lost my identity. I lost my money. I lost what I thought was my masculinity. But it was through the struggle, through the rebirthing, that I was able to find my own way as what I call, or what I affectionately will call, an evolved person, or at least a person who's attempting to evolve, at least a person who's attempting to grow past their limitations, their fears, their insecurities, their negative patterns, their judgments of others. Folks, it requires looking in the mirror, an honest look in the mirror. And believe me, I work with men and women alike. It is so amazing how we can gaslight ourselves, how delusional we can be to our own frailties. And it requires looking in the mirror and being honest with oneself and saying, you know what? I'm not perfect. I recognize not everyone else is perfect. So how can we grow as an individual for oneself? And how can we choose people who are also grown up as well? How to spot them. So number one, whether it's a man or woman, they lead with emotional courage. They lead with emotional courage, not ego. They initiate the hard conversations. They stay present when things get uncomfortable. And they tell the truth with tenderness rather than defensiveness. Emotional leadership is the strength, not the shame. By the way, I'm reading from my notes, so please forgive me if you see my eyes going this way. And sometimes I look at the screen. So if you ever see my eyes look down like I am right now, they lead with emotional courage, not ego. I want you to sit and embrace that for a moment. What does emotional courage mean? It means being vulnerable. It means being authentic. It means being transparent. What is transparency? If it's material to the relationship, it's important to speak up. It's about having those hard conversations, what I call those radically honest conversations. In fact, in my private coaching, I have a section called Radical Honesty, Pre-Qualifying Your Prospect. That means asking, when we mean tougher questions, we mean those questions to evoke some sort of understanding about how one person thinks, how they feel, what their needs are, what their desires are. It's about opening up beyond the surface of, how's your day going? Did you have a good day? I hope you had a good day. Tell me about your day. You know, it fascinates me. I have clients that will send me screenshots of their conversations. And believe me, I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of screenshots, and they seem to all be the same. How's your day going? Did you have a good day? They're not having the tough conversations. And by the way, you should never have a tough conversation via text message. Please, please don't infer that from what I'm saying. You should never have a tough conversation via text message. All right, another thing that emotionally evolved grown-up men and women have alike, they hold a vision and a direction of the relationship. They hold a vision and direction of the relationship. They think in terms of we. They consider the practical steps of life building. And they create forward momentum without controlling or dominating. Their leadership feels like clarity, not pressure. Now, by the way, I know if you're a woman watching this, you want the man to take the lead, but I'm here to encourage a co-creative experience. And while the man might be the leader at 51%, could be 55%. I think a healthy relationship is a combined balance of both givers and receivers, both givers and receivers. All right, next, they own their humanity instead of hiding it. They own their humanity instead of hiding it. They don't need to pretend that they're unshakable, that they're so confident and so stoic. You know, the reality is we human beings are flawed. We're fragile. If we're pretending, by the way, do you know like the number one thing they tell women about dating is you should be confident. They tell men you need to be confident. You know, we are scared beings for the most part. Sure, we can show confidence in some areas, but on emotional levels, we are still a bunch of 6-year-olds. By the way, when I wrote my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work. It's to recognize that self-love is self-worth, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-reliance, self-discipline. But most importantly, what self-love is to recognize that we all have an emotional 6-year-old inside of us that just needs a big hug and says, I've got your back. That's what confidence is. We don't hide our humanity. We lean into it. We own it. Next, they create emotional safety through presence. They create emotional safety through presence. Do you know how many people in the dating realm, in the relationship realm, they're either thinking in the past or they're focused on the future? Usually by the way, they're both fear-based most of the time. When you're stuck in the past, it's because you have a past hurt, a pain. And when it's future sense, it's usually either an egoic fantasy, or it can be fear of emotional collapse. It can be fear of abandonment. You know, I invite everyone to look at their past relationships and ask themselves, what positive things about myself did I learn in each one of my relationships? How have I healed from a relationship? Or how has that relationship helped me heal? What was good about the relationship? I think we should lean into the good parts and certainly ask ourselves what wasn't so good, because we want to be a reminder of what we don't want in the future. And lastly, what are we most grateful for? The reason why I'm saying this in the area of presence is when we can come from a place of a healthy past, that we don't need to be in fear. We don't need to have pain. And let me just tell you this. We are swimming in a sea of vanity and fantasy for so many people. They outvalue themselves. And what I mean to say is, it seems like everybody wants someone 10 times better than themselves. Now, I know that sounds like a judgment when I say that, but the reality is we oftentimes are in a delusion about our own capacity to what we can attract. You see it all the time. Women see it all the time. They see it with men who want women 20 or 30 years younger. Those men are in delusion. And women are in delusion hoping that they're going to find a man over 6 foot tall, 6-figure income, and 6-pack abs with a 6-inch penis, because that only represents a small percentage of the population. Anyways, presence. That's about understanding oneself from a self-aware place. Recognizing our fears, our insecurities, our negative patterns, our judgments of others, and letting go of all that and just focusing on the moment at hand. You know, a great practice of presence. There's a tree outside my window right there. I observe the leaves. I observe the leaves. I observe the wind shaking the leaves. I observe that. That's presence. Just in that moment, I was looking out the window, present. Create emotional safety through presence. Next, lead the sexual aspect of the relationship. It allows each one of you to soften and feel trust. Each one of you lead. Be attuned, be grounded, initiate. Men are thirsty for women initiating, and women are so thirsty for men to initiate the sexual aspects of the relationship. You know what? It saddens me to say that most people are bad at sex to begin with. Let me reframe that. We're not bad at sex. We're not bad at sticking the penis inside the vagina. You know what we're bad at? We're bad at making love. I mean, I'm talking about present, grounded love. This wasn't taught. It's something that you work on from the inside out. And guess what? This is something you can build within the relationship. And by the way, someone who's willing to work in this area is an evolved masculine or feminine, evolved masculine or feminine man or woman. Another thing that evolved people do is they practice accountability without shame or blame. They practice accountability without shame or blame. When they mess up, they own it. No gaslighting, no disappearing, no excuses. A lot. I have to repeat that. They take accountability without shame or blame. When they mess up, there's no gaslighting, there's no disappearing, and there's no excuses. They take responsibility for their impact and they care about your well-being. When you care about someone else's well-being, that's one of the highest definitions of trust. Highest definition of trust. We oftentimes point the finger. Do you know what happens when you point a finger? There's 3 fingers pointing back. There's 3 fingers pointing back. You got to look back at yourself. That's what shame and blame does. And guess what? When you do that, you're just mirroring your own insecurities, your fears, your issues. You're messing up. When you take ownership of it, when you don't gaslight, when you don't disappear and you don't make excuses, you start to experience a more evolved, juicy, delicious, healthy, happy relationship. And I'm here to promote life partnership-based relationships. I know it's tough out there. The casual relationships now outnumber serious relationships, situationships, friends with benefits and hooking up. That's the most common relationship today. If you want that juicy, delicious life partnership based relationship, then it's going to require rolling up your sleeves and doing the inner work to be in the space of what I talked about today is evolved. And last but not least, masculinity and femininity come from depth, not dominance. They're not posturing. They're not overcompensating. They're not trying to prove anything. Masculinity and femininity come from emotional depth, self-awareness, grounded integrity, not from the outdated roles or fragile pride. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? I hope you took notes. I hope you go back and write this down. I want you to start paying attention to the communication you have with another human being. Is it talking about your day or is it talking about feelings? Are you talking about feelings? Lean into that for a second. Are you talking about feelings? Are you talking about how you feel about things, how you felt about things in the past? See, an evolved person isn't afraid to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to be transparent. An evolved person isn't. In fact, you know what? They lean into it because they know a deeply committed relationship requires emotional depth. And they're willing to roll up their sleeves. And if they don't know how to do something, they go learn it. Maybe they buy the book. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. I highly recommend checking out this book. All the books I recommend are listed below, just like my book. If you haven't read this book, it should be in your repertoire before you ever have sex with anyone ever again. Because when you come from an evolved place, you build a grounded relationship that demonstrates trust, demonstrates safety. And guess what? The sex will be off the charts when you create a safe, grounded space for a relationship. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, hey, there's links below. Schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's links to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's links to follow me on social media. There's links to get all the books I recommend, all listed below.